Hello and what's up peeps, this is the Geek Artist back again with another video. I'll start off by saying thank you so much for all the love and support, especially over the last couple of months, because I just reached 50,000 subscribers. I know it's not a huge deal, but to me it feels like 5 million. When I started this channel 8 years back, I never dreamed this would ever happen, so here we are, and thank you for making this possible, and I hope you'll continue to support me the same way. Now, based on the overwhelming response I got on the post from 2 weeks back where I wanted to know from you guys if I should make a concise video on grayscale values to colored painting conversion, I'm finally making the video. Here it is. I hope you like it, and if you do, don't forget to share, like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications of my future uploads. Now, the goal of value painting is to design an environment without having to worry about things like colors, creating beautiful moods and vibrancy. We can simply focus on creating the design of an environment, atmospheric perspective, depth, shapes, values, and lighting. So I'm thinking of creating a swamp kind of an environment. I'm imagining this would be a place where DC's Swamp Thing would stay. So it's going to be creepy, spooky, kind of dark. So I'm starting off with mid-ground, and I'm going to keep a tree following the rule of thirds. I'm going to keep it on the right side. It's not going to be a regular tree, it's going to be something that you might see in a swamp with all these roots coming out of the water body and sticking out. It's almost like an upside down hand. And what I'm doing now is I'm creating a foreground. I'm trying to split my scene into 3 grounds: foreground, mid-ground and background. As you can see, I'm using 3 simple tones: a darker gray, a mid-tone gray and a lighter gray, to split the scene into 3 different planes. And I'm creating simple shapes. I'm trying to define the shape of the tree in the mid-ground a bit more. All I'm doing now is creating silhouettes and some very minimal textures. So what we have now is 3 different planes: the background, mid-ground and the foreground, but there's also a huge gap between each of these frames. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start filling up these gaps by adding a bit more details using values that lie between these subsequent ranges. So right now I'm trying to add some elements in the background to create more depth. It looks empty. It looks like probably some kind of sky, an empty space. So I'm going to add some details like landmass over there, small mounds, and now I'm adding some trees even further back. These are like huge gigantic trees in the background with all sorts of crooked and weird shapes, with branches sort of branching out in all sorts of weird directions. I'm trying to create a very creepy and spooky mood over here with these shapes. I'm gonna make the background a bit brighter. I'm gonna add a little more depth with more details, maybe trees that are even further back. I'm trying to create an even more interesting shape by adding some variation. So I'm going to draw some weird and spooky vines hanging from these trees to create that spooky and eerie atmosphere. I'm trying to define the shapes of the mountains now by adding more details. Right now it looks like a very flat, minimal shape. I'm gonna add some designs, some more details. Now I'm gonna do the same with the tree in the mid-ground, some hanging vines and mosses and some really crooked details and shapes to give that organic feel that these are not 2D flat objects. These have volume, these have small details. And the importance of these details is that design, it enhances designs. If you fill your scene with monotonous shapes that have the same quality, no details, the scene is gonna look bland. So that's one of the goals of environment design. You need to break your scene into various shapes. And most importantly, you need to keep variations. If you fill your scene with 3 big circles and nothing else, it's gonna look bland. But if you fill your scene with a big circle, 2 medium-sized circles, and maybe 3 or 4 very small circles, this kind of variations of shape and quantity is what makes your scene look more appealing. What I'm doing now is I'm creating a more immediate foreground with a darker value. So I'm trying to fill the gap between the foreground we had and the camera or the viewer. If you think about this in a cinematic way, then yeah, I'm trying to keep something right in front of the camera to create more depth. And I can see a good opportunity to create some interesting shapes on the right side corner that looks kind of empty. I'm creating contrast over there. One of the great things about value painting is that we can create contrast. and contrast is what makes a scene look more dynamic, more dramatic, more cinematic. So we should always try to create contrast with the help of interesting shapes and depth using values, of course. I'm trying to mix the area of contact between the tree in the midground and the supposedly water body. So with that, I'm more or less happy with the kind of environment I just made, and once I'm happy with the shapes, the silhouettes that I've made, I'm gonna move on to lighting. Now the depth is clear. It is very clear what's in the foreground, what's in the midground, and what's in the background. The space is clear, there's no doubt about it. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to breathe some more life into this scene using some light. So I'm gonna create some more depth on the right side, right behind the tree. As you can see, I'm trying to create contrast there. I'm shedding some more light, some light rays, because this is a swamp. This is a place that has all sorts of fogs and natural biogas, mist, fog, and those things. So this is going to be a foggy scene. The shapes are going to be kind of blurry in places, and light is going to seep in through those dense layers of gases and fogs. So I'm going to create some more contrast right now by casting a very strong light in the middle ground. So I'm casting a very strong light over there. Another tip that you should keep in mind while doing value paintings is that do not zoom in too much. Try to keep the canvas minimized to a small size and then paint. That way you don't focus on details too much. You focus on creating a good composition, and that's something that's more important than creating unnecessary details at the very beginning stage. You need to get the fundamentals and design right, and you can do that in a better way if you keep the canvas small. That way you can see the whole picture all the time. I'm trying to carve out the light a bit better now. I'm trying to cast a few more lights on the left side, and now I'm adding some glow. Because of all that bright light that's falling on the water, there's gonna be some glow. Even the fog around the area is gonna capture the light, and the light is gonna diffuse into the fog, so that's why the glow. That kind of glow and fog also sort of mixes the area of contact between the water and the landmass that lies behind it. So it's very important to do these things to create a more wholesome, more well stitched together environment. So that's what we have till now with the extra lighting that I did. What I'm doing now is I'm finally moving on to the subject. Now this is a scene, this is an environment with elements of organic nature, but it lacks one thing. It lacks a hero, it lacks a character, it lacks a subject, which I'm adding now. Following the rule of thirds, I'm keeping a character. If you can imagine, one of the second vertical line would possibly be there, so I'm keeping the character over there standing one of the roots of the trees that protruding outside of the water. I'm casting some rim light on him from the back, and now I can see a scope. I can see the scope for creating another subject in the foreground standing in this root, and now I'm adding some details, some highlights on the trees. Always seize opportunities like this where you can create interesting contrast, whether it's with the help of characters or something else. Always try to create contrast and interesting shapes. And now I'm happy with the design that we made till now. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to fix the values. In a sense, I'm gonna adjust the levels. I'm gonna maybe increase the overall contrast or brightness with the help of some adjustment layers. I'm trying to make it a bit more dark because it's gonna be a very spooky and creepy place. So right now, rather than these two characters being the subject, I can even interpret this in a different way, that the subject is not these two characters but the ground, the plane that lies between them. It's like this is the stage just before a grand face-off, like a huge fight is about to follow between these two characters. They're gonna clash against each other in the swamp, and they're probably gonna end up destroying the whole place. These two are probably very ancient, powerful beings, sorcerers or witches who dwell in the woods, in the swamps, and due to some circumstances they're now about to fight. So that's the whole context of the scene probably. So what I'm doing now is, once I've adjusted the levels and I'm happy with it, I'm going to try to add some colors, and I'm going to do that by using color lookups. I'm gonna try some options of color lookups to get a bit of a greenish feel to the scene, and it can happen. As you can see, it is all happening in very few clicks. I'm using some combinations of color lookups, I'm gonna try to push the overall colors towards that swamp green kind of a mood. As you can see, I very easily turned that grayscale image into a greenish painting with the help of color lookups. Now my ultimate goal here is to create a very dark, moody scene which is gonna have enough cool light in the shadow areas, but also some warm light hitting it to create that contrast, to create that variation in color. So it's not gonna be all green everywhere. No, it's gonna have shades of blue, it's gonna have shades of yellow as well. And that's where this next step comes in. I'm trying to create that cool mood again with the help of some color adjustments. What I'm doing is, once I have that bluish tone, I'm trying to erase that bluish tone from the area from where the light might come in. And what I want to create is a good transition between the cool tones and the warm tones. And I don't just want a very bluish tone for the shadows and a very yellowish tone for the lights. I also want a nice transition, so I'm going to use some red or orange color for the transition areas, which I'm doing now. And I'm doing all of that in an overlay blending mode. Note this, that you can do wonderful things using overlay. And I'm adding the glow on the water where the light's hitting, and I'm going to add some bluish tones to create that sense of fog or mist that covers the whole swamp. And whatever light hits this place, like you can imagine a swamp like this is going to be covered in vegetation, is going to be covered in trees of all sorts, and very little light ever enters these kind of places. It's mostly covered in fog all the time. So sometimes what happens is that the fog diffuses the light and carries it forward to other places of shadow. So I'm gonna try to create that kind of thing on the right side. It's not receiving a direct light, but the fog is carrying the light in a diffuse manner in that area. I'm painting that with a round soft brush with low opacity. What I'm doing now is I'm casting some very strong light on the characters that's probably a result of the bounce that's coming from the strong light that's hitting the water. What highlights like these does, it helps pop things out of the background. It's already a good contrast over there, but things like these extra highlights create mood. It adds more depth, it adds more beauty and character to the whole piece. Sometimes these highlights can be used purely for stylistic reasons. It might not make sense to put them everywhere, but try to focus the light in an area where you want people to focus attention on, which is for now the characters. I'm trying to do some final color adjustment with some adjustment layers to make the overall scene a little more cool, a little more bluish. I'm trying to create a bit more atmospheric depth on the right side. Again, it's all about creating nice contrast. So that's all. I used a combination of some color lookups and some adjustment layers, a few blending modes like overlay to create this kind of a mood, and it took hardly a few minutes. And something like this can be achieved in even 5 to 10 minutes. It's a very rough process, but the output can be great. So that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got to learn something new. And if you have any thoughts, if you have any feedbacks, don't forget to leave a comment. And once again, thank you for all the love and support and for the 50,000 subscribers. And that's it for now. See you on the next one. Peace.